You, like me, were all taught that Hippocrates was the father of modern medicine. And modern medicine, the way we know it, is drugs, surgery, and long-term hospital stays. So that's actually the business end of things. Hippocrates himself, we're familiar with the term "let food be thy medicine," let medicine be thy food. Last I checked, the medics don't use food as medicine, they use drugs. The other thing is that Hippocrates ended up utilizing lifestyle modifications and exercise and even spinal manipulation as a form of addressing various conditions. Our current medical people do not do that. They use drugs, radical surgeries, and long-term hospital stays to profit off of your pain and suffering. So that being said, I find it interesting. There's no similarity between current allopathic medicine of drugs, surgeries, and long-term hospital stays for profit and the natural healing methods of Hippocrates. Hippocrates was, in my opinion, a naturalist. He was an organic healthcare provider. He understood that nurturing nature was the key. So what's the bridge? Who is really the founder of modern medicine? Well, it's John D. Rockefeller Sr. All right, you guys may know him from Standard Oil. And competition was a sin. So what he tried to do was he tried to kind of shift into another profit-based center. And he was exposed to a style of medicine at the time that was German in origin that profited off of people's pain and suffering. And what they did was they used not natural herbs and medicinal plant-based medicines, but what they used was artificial poisons that they were able to patent, radical surgeries, and long-term hospital stays for profit. The intention was to make sure that the public is not sick to the point where they die, but is not healthy enough to the point there could be any kind of rebellion against any kind of system. And the way he did that was, in the United States, there were a little over about a half a dozen medical schools, and most of them taught homeopathy at that point. So prior to about 1910, the United States, the people, that lived here were some of the most healthiest people in the world. Their primary source of medicine was homeopathy that John D. Rockefeller himself used, and now we come to find out that he used a chiropractor. And I find that very intriguing because when John D. Rockefeller ended up appointing Abraham Flexner, one of his cronies, to go into the medical schools, to assess the situation, to overhaul them, and to start phasing out natural healing and natural medicine and start incorporating the toxic drugs, the radical surgeries, and the long-term hospital stays for profit. The Rockefeller family themselves have used strictly homeopathy, and I found out that they used chiropractic. The interesting thing about the history was Dr. William Jensen was not mentioned anywhere on the list of any of Rockefeller's physicians, and I find that very, very interesting. Not only did Dr. Jensen end up treating John D. Rockefeller, but he also got paid, and he got paid at $21 a check, and this is back in 1931, so that's a big banana. The Rockefeller Foundation controls all of the medical schools, all of the licensures, chiropractors. I mean, we're familiar with the CCE that controls all the schools. They dictate what is taught and what it takes to graduate. And you know that in the early 1900s, a lot of chiropractors went to prison for practicing chiropractic. He kind of bribed politicians, people in government to set up a licensure structure. For you to be able to practice any form of medicine at that point, you need a license. And if you didn't have a license, guess what? You go to prison. So John D. Rockefeller is the guy who was the founder of modern medicine and was against chiropractic, all right? A typical situation of do as I say and not as I do. He ended up making tons and tons of money peddling drugs, poison drugs that did nothing than manage symptoms and also made people sicker, when for himself and for his family, he used homeopathy, and they used chiropractic. One of the things that I found very interesting in doing some research about John D. Rockefeller's father, his father was the name of William Avery Rockefeller. They called him Devil Bill because what he did was he was a snake oil salesman, and he ended up making lotions and potions for people that were sick with cancer and various different chronic and terminal diseases. He was actually kicked out of New York because he was also a known horse thief. He was actually pushed into Illinois, where, you know, he went out there and hustled and lent money to farmers, you know, people that were destitute, and he knew that, you know, he could take over their properties when they foreclosed. So, you know, he was a hustler to the point where he had to change his name. And he changed his name to Dr. William Livingston. He wanted to be a doctor so bad, and he wanted the public to believe his nonsense, that he changed his name to that. And subsequently, to the best of my knowledge, he's buried under that name. I wanted you guys to think, and I wanted you guys to understand that when it comes to health, wellness, and healing, that the only answer or the only true path is nurturing nature. John D. Rockefeller Sr., the father of modern medicine, knew that and understood it for himself. And unfortunately for the majority of the public, he gave them another script, and he gave them another belief system. And unfortunately, these days, we spend more on medicine than anybody else, and we're sicker and sicker. If the information and the treatments that they were giving us were actually truthful and they actually helped heal us, we should be healthier. So the fact that we're not tells me all I need to know. Use logic, reason, and common sense, and if it makes sense where you should implement different strategies to get different results, I encourage you to do so.